I watched the email notification pop up on my laptop screen at 11:47 p.m. on December 18th, and my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might be sick. The subject line read, "Urgent, account reconciliation required." It was from the accounting firm handling our company's books, the firm that had been doing our taxes for the past 4 years. I clicked it open with trembling fingers. The numbers didn't make sense at first. I read them again, then a third time. $340,000 gone. Missing from the company account over the past 8 months. The email was asking me to confirm whether I had authorized these transfers. I hadn't. I knew immediately who had. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type a response. I closed the laptop and just sat there in the dark of my home office, listening to the wind howl against the windows of our rental house in Fairbanks, Alaska. Outside, the December darkness was absolute. The temperature was probably sitting around -15, but I felt colder than the Arctic air pressing against the glass. That's when everything changed. That's the moment I should have walked away, but I didn't know it yet. Let me back up. 4 years earlier, in the fall of 2020, I'd been working remotely as a software engineer for a Seattle-based company, pulling in a solid 6-figure salary. It was good money, enough to feel secure, enough to think about a future. But it wasn't fulfilling. I spent my days fixing bugs in other people's code, attending meetings that could have been emails, watching my 30s tick away in a cubicle that existed only on my screen. Then Marcus reached out to me on LinkedIn. Marcus Chen was someone I'd known in passing from college. He'd been 2 years ahead of me, studying business. Always the kind of guy who had 3 side projects going at once. He was charismatic in that entrepreneurial way that makes people believe him. We'd grabbed coffee once at a tech conference in 2019, and he'd mentioned he was thinking about starting something in the cybersecurity space. I'd given him some technical feedback and hadn't thought about him since. But in October 2020, he messaged me directly. He'd built the skeleton of a platform for penetration testing automation, basically software that helps companies find vulnerabilities in their own systems before the bad guys do. It was a good idea. He said he needed a technical co-founder to help him build it properly, scale it, make it real. And he wanted me. "We could have something real here," Marcus wrote. "Not in 5 years, in 2. I can feel it." I was 31 years old. I'd never started anything. I'd never taken a real risk. I had a cat named Duchess and another cat named Tuna, both adopted from the shelter, and they were probably the most important things in my life at that point, which tells you something about where I was mentally. The idea of building something from nothing, of being my own boss, of having skin in the game, it was intoxicating. I told my Seattle employer I was leaving. I told Marcus, yes. That December, I moved to Fairbanks. Marcus had chosen the location specifically because of the tax incentives and because neither of us had ties to the lower 48 anymore, or so I thought. The town is small, maybe 80,000 people, but it's the heart of Alaska's oil and gas industry, and there's money there. Marcus found us an office in the business park off Airport Road. I rented a 3-bedroom house on the north side of town, a place with decent internet and a fireplace. I brought Duchess and Tuna with me. The first year was magical. I'm not exaggerating. Marcus and I worked 14-hour days, but they didn't feel like work. We were building something. We'd sit in the office, just the 2 of us, usually, hammering out architecture, running tests, iterating. Marcus was phenomenal at the business side. He'd pitch to potential clients, close deals, manage the sales pipeline. I'd build the product. We split everything 50-50, equal partners. By the end of 2021, we had our first paying customer, a mid-sized bank in Oregon. Then 2 more in early 2022. By mid-2022, we had 12 customers. Revenue was climbing. We were still reinvesting most of it back into the company, but we'd both taken modest salaries, $50,000 a year each, enough to cover rent and food, and not much else. That was fine. We were building equity. I met my now husband David in February 2022 at a coffee shop near the office. He was an accountant with the state, quiet and steady, the kind of man who actually listened when you talked, instead of just waiting for his turn to speak. He had kind eyes and terrible taste in music. We dated for about 6 months before he moved in. By September 2022, we were engaged. My life in Fairbanks had become something I'd never expected. Happy. Real happy. Not the Instagram kind, but the genuine kind where you wake up and you're grateful for where you are. David and I got married on October 15th, 2022, at the courthouse. It was just the two of us and a witness we found on Craigslist. Afterward, we went to dinner at Simon & Seafort's, and I remember David reaching across the table and squeezing my hand and saying, "I can't believe I get to come home to you every day." That might be the last, truly uncomplicated moment of my life. Marcus was thrilled about the wedding. He sent us flowers and a very expensive bottle of wine. He came to the courthouse. Actually, I forgot to mention that. He was there with his girlfriend, Victoria, a woman I'd met a handful of times but didn't know well. She seemed nice enough, though a bit cold. Marcus hugged me and told me I deserved this happiness, that he was proud of me for building the company and building a life. "We're going to make it huge," he said. "You, me, and David. We'll all be set for life." But something shifted after that. I didn't notice it at first. By November 2022, Marcus started talking about needing to restructure how we were handling finances. He said we should formalize things, bring in an accounting firm, make sure we were maximizing our tax efficiency. This all made sense. We were a legitimate business now with real revenue, so I agreed. Marcus recommended a firm called Northridge Accounting. He'd apparently worked with them before on another venture. They seemed professional. We signed the contract. That decision would eventually destroy everything. The winter of 2022 was brutal, not just in temperature, though it was that, with the sun disappearing for weeks at a time, but in a way I couldn't articulate. I'd chalk it up to seasonal depression at first. The darkness in Alaska does something to you. But looking back now, I can see that the darkness was in the numbers, not the sky. By December 2022, exactly 4 years ago now, I was spending most of my time dealing with client relationships and product updates. Marcus had brought in someone else to handle day-to-day sales and support. This person, Trevor, was Marcus's cousin. I didn't hire him. Marcus hired him. And suddenly, I was managing people, which I'd never wanted to do. I wanted to write code. I wanted to solve problems. I wanted to build. Instead, I was in meetings. Marcus and I started having our first real disagreements in late November. He wanted to hire 3 more salespeople. I thought we should focus on product stability first. We'd had some bugs in the latest release. He overruled me, just decided to hire them without really discussing it with me. When I brought it up, he said, "You're the tech person. Let me handle the business side. That's the deal, remember?" It was the deal, but it didn't feel like a partnership anymore. It felt like I was being managed. David noticed I was stressed. He'd come home and find me in the office staring at code that I'd written 100 times, unable to focus. He'd make me dinner. He was actually a good cook, surprisingly. And we'd eat in front of the fireplace with Duchess and tuna sprawled across the couch between us. "Talk to Marcus," David said one night. "Tell him you need things to go back to how they were." "It's not that simple," I said. "We're growing. Things have to change." "But are you happy?" he asked. I couldn't answer him. I realized I didn't know. By December 2022, the money situation was getting tight despite our revenue. Marcus explained that this was normal for growth stage companies. We had to spend money to make money. The new hires were expensive. We needed better office space. We needed to go to conferences, build the brand. It all made sense in the moment, even though I'd never seen the detailed breakdown. "I trust you," I told Marcus. "You handle the finances." That was the mistake. Not the only one, but maybe the biggest. And then came that December 18th email at 11:47 p.m. with the number that would start everything falling apart. $340,000. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark with my laptop, pulling up every document I could access. The transfers had been authorized using Marcus's signature and approval codes. Where had the money gone? Payments to consultant retainers, payments to companies I'd never heard of, payments to a marketing agency in Seattle. The descriptions were vague. When I dug deeper into the accounting system, I found that Marcus had granted himself and Trevor access to the account. I hadn't even known that was possible. By 3 a.m., I'd made a list. 47 transfers, totaling $338,000 over the past 8 months. My business partner had stolen from me. More specifically, he'd stolen from us, from the company we'd built together, which meant he'd stolen from me, because 50% of that company was mine. I sat in the living room as dawn started to break, that gray, reluctant Alaskan dawn, and looked at David sleeping on the couch. He'd come out here at 2 a.m. and asked if I was okay. I'd told him I'd explain in the morning. He'd fallen asleep, waiting for me. I thought about the 4 years I'd spent building something, the 14-hour days, the code I'd written, the clients I'd helped, the vision Marcus and I had shared. All of it was built on a lie. Or rather, it was real, but my partner had been draining it behind my back the entire time. My hands were steady when I picked up my phone. I scrolled to Marcus's contact and hovered over it. I could call him, confront him, demand answers. But something told me that would be a mistake. Something told me I needed to be very, very careful about what I did next. So instead, I did something I'd never done before. I called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Patricia Brennan, and she returned my call at 8:30 a.m. on December 19th, which was either very fast or very slow, depending on how you looked at it. I'd left a voicemail at 6 a.m., my voice hoarse, saying only that I needed emergency consultation regarding potential embezzlement by a business partner. I didn't say how much. I couldn't say it out loud yet. "Tell me everything," Patricia said. She had a Boston accent and the kind of no-nonsense tone that made me believe she'd heard worse. "Start from the beginning. When did you discover the discrepancy?" I was sitting in my car in the driveway, the engine running for heat. Outside, it was negative 18 degrees. David was inside with the cats, probably still asleep. I'd left a note saying I had to handle a work emergency. "Last night," I said, "midnight. The accounting firm sent an email flagging transfers I never authorized." "How much?" $340,000. There was a pause. Not shocked. Patricia wasn't the type to be shocked, just processing. "Over what time frame?" she asked. 8 months. "And your partner is?" "Marcus Chen. He's the CEO, I'm CTO. We're 50-50 owners." "Do you have documentation? Emails, contracts, bank statements?" "Yes. I pulled everything at 3 in the morning." "Good. Don't talk to him. Don't text him. Don't email him. Do you understand?" "Yes. I'm serious. Not, I understand, but I'm going to reach out anyway. I mean nothing. He's your partner, which means anything you say can and will be used against you in court or settlement negotiations. As of right now, you and I are going to assume he's going to lie. He's going to gaslight you, and he's going to have a lawyer of his own within 24 hours. You need to move faster than that." My stomach clenched. What do I do? "First, we secure the company accounts. I'm going to email you a list of actions. You need to do them immediately, before he has any idea that you know. Change all passwords that only you know the answer to. Take screenshots of everything in the accounting system. Transfers, authorization logs, everything. Download it to an external drive. Do not keep it on your work computer. Do you have your own personal laptop? Yes. Use that. Then you're going to go to the company bank and request a freeze on any accounts where his signature appears. Explain that there's been unauthorized activity. You'll need to be there in person. They'll ask questions. You give them nothing except the fact that there's been fraud. Got it? I was taking notes with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "Then what?" I asked. "Then we file a police report. And then we talk about whether you want to try to settle this quietly or go scorched earth." "I don't know yet." "That's fine. You don't have to decide today. But I need you to know something, and I want you to hear this clearly. Embezzlement at this level, with this much documentation, is not a gray area. This is theft. The only question is whether you want the law involved or whether you want to handle it between lawyers. Both paths have costs. Both paths will be ugly." After I hung up, I sat in the car for another 10 minutes. My breath fogged the windshield. Somewhere in the frozen morning, a truck horn blared from the direction of the main road. The world was going on like normal. People were driving to work. Businesses were opening. Marcus was probably sleeping in his apartment somewhere in Fairbanks, not knowing that his entire life was about to change. I went back inside. David was in the kitchen making coffee. He took one look at my face and set down the carafe. "What happened?" he asked. I told him. I laid it all out. The numbers, the email, the lawyer, the advice to change passwords and freeze accounts and file a police report. He listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, he pulled me against his chest, and I let myself fall apart for exactly 3 minutes. Then I pulled back. "I need to go to the office," I said. "Now?" "Now, before he gets there. I need to change the passwords and take screenshots of everything." "Okay," David said. "I'm coming with you." "You don't have to. I'm coming." We drove to the office in silence. The streets of Fairbanks at 9 a.m. in December were gray and empty. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. When we got to the building, I used my keycard to get into the office. It was empty, just me, David, and the hum of the servers in the back room. I logged into the main company account and started changing passwords. Each one took maybe 30 seconds. Email, bank portal, AWS, GitHub, accounting system. With each password I changed, I felt something shift inside me. I was locking him out. I was taking back control. Then I started taking screenshots, page after page of transfers. I screenshotted the authorization logs, showing that Marcus had granted himself and Trevor access to the account. I screenshotted emails between Marcus and the accounting firm discussing operational adjustments and strategic reallocation of funds. I screenshotted everything. David sat at one of the empty desks watching me work, occasionally getting up to make sure no one was coming down the hallway. It took 45 minutes. When I was done, I copied everything onto an external hard drive and put it in my purse. "Okay," I said, "we're done." At 10:15 a.m., my phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Hey, you coming in today? Trevor and I are doing a client call at 11. I didn't respond. By 10:45, another text. Question mark? By 11, a call. I let it go to voicemail, then an email. "Ashley, is everything okay? I'm getting worried. Call me." He didn't know. That was the surreal part. He genuinely didn't know that I knew. He was probably wondering if something was wrong with me personally, if I was sick, if there was a family emergency, if I was just having a bad day. The police station was on Airport Road, about 10 minutes from the office. David drove while I sat in the passenger seat, the external hard drive in my lap like it might explode. The officer I spoke to was named Jackson, a man in his 50s with a weathered face and a thick Alaskan accent. He took my statement for 90 minutes. I walked him through everything: the timeline, the numbers, the transfers, the authorization logs. He took notes in a small spiral notebook, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Your partner ever give you any explanation for these transfers?" he asked. "I haven't asked him. My lawyer told me not to contact him." "Smart lawyer. And you've got documentation of everything?" "Yes, screenshots, email trails, bank statements, everything." "Okay. This is going to take a while to investigate properly. We're going to need to subpoena records from the accounting firm, the bank, all of it. But I'm going to file the report today. You should expect him to get contacted by law enforcement within the next week or so. That's when things are going to get real." By the time we left the police station, it was 1:30 p.m. David had missed work. I'd missed work. The company was probably in chaos. Marcus and Trevor trying to figure out why I wasn't responding, why the passwords weren't working, why the accounts weren't accessible. My phone had 17 missed calls, 13 from Marcus, 4 from Trevor. Then, at 2 p.m., a different number called, a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Ashley?" a man's voice asked. Professional, measured. "Who is this?" "This is Richard Hayes. I'm an attorney representing Marcus Chen." I understand there may have been some miscommunication regarding company finances. My client would very much like to meet with you and discuss this matter before it escalates. He's willing to be very reasonable. My blood went cold. I'm not discussing anything without my lawyer present, I said. I think you might want to reconsider that approach, Ms. I hung up. Immediately, I called Patricia. He's got a lawyer already. Of course he does, she said. How long between when you found out and now? About 14 hours. He either had a lawyer on speed dial or someone tipped him off that you knew. Either way, this is escalating faster than I'd like. Here's what's happening now. We're going to send him a cease and desist letter. We're going to demand an accounting of all company finances. We're going to freeze your personal assets that he might know about. Get down at any joint accounts. Move it to something with only your name on it. And we're going to prepare for him to make this very ugly. What do you mean, make it ugly? I asked. I mean, he's going to tell his lawyer that you stole from the company, that you're the one who authorized those transfers, that you've been embezzling and now you're trying to frame him. He's going to claim you went rogue. He's going to... But that's not true, I said. I have proof. I have the authorization logs. I have his signature. Doesn't matter. In a he said, she said situation, especially when both partners have access to the accounts, it becomes a legal question, not a factual one. The question becomes, who can prove their version of events? And if his lawyer is smart, and based on the fact that he hired one within hours of you discovering this, I'd guess he is, he's already preparing a counter-narrative. I felt the room tilt slightly. What's my counter-narrative? I asked. The truth, Patricia said. But we need to make sure the truth is undeniable, which is why we're moving fast. I'm sending you paperwork tonight. I need you to sign it and get it back to me by tomorrow morning. We're filing an emergency motion to freeze all company assets pending an investigation. We're also requesting an emergency hearing to discuss a temporary restraining order. A restraining order? On Marcus? Potentially. It depends on his next move, but I want to be prepared. After I hung up, I sat in David's car in the parking lot of the police station and let myself cry. Not the controlled 3-minute crying I'd done that morning. Full, ugly, gasping crying. David held my hand and didn't try to make it better. I built that company, I said between sobs. I built it from nothing. I wrote every line of code. I solved every problem. I trusted him. I thought we were building something together. You did build something, David said quietly, and you're going to keep it. But I wasn't sure about that anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch in the dark with my laptop, reading through every email Marcus had ever sent me, looking for signs, looking for the moment he decided to start stealing, looking for the moment our partnership became a lie. I found an email from 6 months earlier, September 2022. Marcus had written, I'm so grateful to have you as my partner. You make me want to be better. We're going to build something that changes everything. I closed the laptop and put my head in my hands. Outside, the Alaskan winter pressed against the windows. The temperature was dropping toward -20. In a few hours, it would be December 20th. Exactly 1 year ago, I'd moved to Fairbanks. 1 year ago, I'd believed in something. Now I didn't know what I believed in anymore. The deposition was scheduled for January 14th, 2023, exactly 4 weeks after I'd discovered the theft. 4 weeks of lawyers, forensic accountants, and investigators who went through our company's finances with a fine-tooth comb. 4 weeks of David asking if I'd eaten, of me forgetting what day it was, of my cats sensing something was wrong and following me from room to room. Patricia had prepped me the night before. We sat in her office in downtown Fairbanks, a small, neat space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chena River, and she went over the questions they'd ask. Don't volunteer information, she said. Answer what they ask, nothing more. If you don't know the answer, say so. Don't guess. Don't elaborate. You're calm, you're factual. You're a woman who discovered fraud and reported it to law enforcement. That's your story. That's the entire story. What if they try to suggest I did it? I asked. They will. That's their job. And you'll say what the evidence shows, that you have authorization logs with Marcus's signature, that you changed your passwords the morning you found out, that you immediately involved law enforcement. Let the evidence speak." The hearing room was smaller than I expected. Not a courtroom, just a conference room with a long table, a court reporter in the corner, and Marcus sitting on the opposite side with his lawyer, Richard Hayes. I hadn't seen Marcus in person since December 18th. He'd lost weight. Or maybe I just never noticed how his eyes looked when he was cornered. Patricia sat beside me. Across from us was Hayes, expensive suit, expensive watch, the kind of lawyer who knew exactly how much his time cost per minute. And in the middle was the mediator, a woman named Susan, who explained that this was a civil deposition, not a trial, and that we were here to establish facts on the record. Hayes went first. He asked me basic questions about my role at the company, my access to the accounts, my authorization to move money. I answered exactly as Patricia had instructed. Yes, I had access. No, I did not authorize the transfers in question. Yes, I discovered them on December 18th, 2023. Yes, I immediately contacted law enforcement. Then he pivoted. "Ms. Ashley, is it accurate that you and Mr. Chen had begun having disagreements about the company's direction prior to December 18th? "We had normal business discussions," I said carefully. "That's not what I asked. Did you disagree with his hiring decisions?" "I had concerns about the timing of new hires relative to product stability, yes." Hayes smiled slightly. "And Mr. Chen overruled you?" "He was the CEO. He had that authority." "So he overruled you. How did that make you feel?" Patricia shifted slightly in her seat. This was the angle they were going for. They wanted to establish that I was bitter, that I had motive to frame him. "It made me feel like my input wasn't valued," I said, "but that's not what this is about." "I'll decide what this is about, Ms. Ashley. Now, when exactly did you decide to freeze the company accounts?" "December 19th, the morning after I discovered the discrepancies." "And how did you have the authority to do that?" "I'm a 50% owner of the company." "Exactly, you had the authority. So when you froze the accounts and locked Mr. Chen out, you were acting within your rights as a co-owner?" I could see where this was going. He wanted to establish that my actions were as much a violation of partnership agreements as Marcus's were, that we were equally culpable in the chaos that followed. "I froze the accounts because I discovered evidence of fraud," I said. "That's not a violation. That's a response to theft." "But you didn't consult with Mr. Chen first? You didn't give him the opportunity to explain?" "My lawyer advised me not to contact him." "Your lawyer advised you to act unilaterally, without giving your partner the chance to respond." Patricia leaned forward. "Objection. Argumentative. The witness is not required to answer questions designed to characterize her counsel's advice." Hayes waved his hand. "Let me rephrase. Did you have any conversation with Mr. Chen about the transfers before you froze the accounts?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I was told that anything I said could be used against me, and I wanted to protect myself." "Protect yourself," Hayes repeated. "That's interesting language. You felt threatened?" "I felt cautious." "Cautious. You felt cautious enough to lock out your business partner, your friend, the man you'd been working with for 4 years, without giving him a single opportunity to explain. That was caution?" Patricia put her hand on my arm, a signal. "I felt cautious enough to follow my lawyer's advice," I said, "which was to preserve evidence and secure company assets before my partner could move money further." "And what evidence of that did you have at the time? Did you suspect he would move more money?" "I had evidence that $340,000 had already been moved without my authorization." "Right, but you had no evidence that he was about to move more money that day. You were acting on suspicion, not fact." I felt my jaw clench. Patricia squeezed my arm again. "I was acting on the advice of law enforcement and my attorney," I said quietly. Hayes smiled like he'd won a point, but then the mediator intervened. "Mr. Hayes, I think we've established Ms. Ashley's timeline and her actions. Let's move to the documentation." For the next hour, we went through bank statements, authorization logs, and email chains. And this is where Hayes's strategy fell apart. Because the documentation was undeniable. Every single transfer had been authorized with Marcus's credentials. Every single one. The authorization logs showed that Marcus had granted himself and Trevor elevated access to the account in August 2022, before I even knew it was possible. When Hayes asked Marcus to explain the authorizations, Marcus's answer was vague. He said something about needing to streamline operations, about delegating authority to Trevor, about how in growing companies, things get complicated. He never actually explained where the money went, and when the forensic accountant, a woman named Dr. Keisha Williams, who'd been hired by the court to do an independent review, presented her findings, the picture became even clearer. Of the $340,000, approximately $180,000 had gone to shell companies with no clear business purpose. Another $80,000 had gone to consulting fees to a company registered in Delaware that appeared to have no employees. The remaining $80,000 had gone to what looked like personal expenses, payments to a car dealership in Anchorage, rent payments to a luxury apartment complex in Seattle, and something that made my stomach drop, payments to a fertility clinic. Hayes's face went gray when that was read into the record. The mediator called for a break. Patricia and I went into a small side room, and she immediately started typing on her phone. "The fertility clinic is the smoking gun," she said. "He was using company money to pay for something deeply personal. That's not business expense. That's theft with intent to cover a personal life. If his girlfriend Victoria, is that her name, knew about these transfers, we have conspiracy. If she didn't, we have an affair funded by stolen company money." "What does that mean for me?" I asked. "It means the judge is going to look at this very unfavorably for Marcus. It means your case just got a lot stronger." When we went back in, Hayes tried to rehabilitate Marcus's story. He asked about the fertility clinic payments, and Marcus said something about Victoria wanting to start a family and how he was planning to pay the company back once his personal finances stabilized. He said it without looking at me. I felt something shift in my chest. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just a kind of tired clarity. This man had sat across from me for 4 years. He'd celebrated my wedding. He'd told me he believed in me. And all the while, he'd been stealing from me to fund a secret life with another woman. The deposition ended at 4:30 p.m. As we were packing up, Marcus's lawyer pulled Patricia aside. I heard fragments of their conversation: settlement discussion, significant liability, your client's financial position. Patricia came back and told me to wait in the car. 20 minutes later, she got in and started the engine. "He's offering a settlement," she said. $280,000 to be paid over 18 months. In exchange, you drop the criminal charges and sign an NDA. "An NDA?" I said. "So he pays me back money that's already mine, and I agree never to talk about what he did?" "Essentially, yes." "No," I said. "Absolutely not." "Think about it," Patricia said. $280,000 is good money. It's not everything, but it's most of it. And a settlement means no trial, no more depositions, no more of this. "No," I said again. "I want him to answer for this. I want everyone to know what he did." Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Then we go to trial, and we bury him." The case didn't go to trial, not because Marcus suddenly developed a conscience, but because the criminal investigation closed in a way I didn't expect. On February 2nd, 2023, I got a call from Officer Jackson at the Fairbanks Police Department. They'd been working with the FBI. Apparently, the shell companies Marcus had been routing money to were part of a larger fraud scheme involving several businesses in Alaska. Marcus hadn't been the mastermind. He'd been a participant, and possibly not even the biggest one. "We're preparing charges," Jackson said. "Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. He's looking at serious federal time. His lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal, but at this point, the evidence is overwhelming." I sat down on the kitchen floor and cried, not because Marcus was going to prison, not because I felt vindicated or victorious. I cried because it suddenly seemed real in a way it hadn't before. This wasn't a legal problem anymore. This was a man's life falling apart. This was consequences that couldn't be undone. David found me on the kitchen floor and pulled me against his chest. "It's over," he said. "Not yet," I said, "but it's starting to be." The settlement Marcus's lawyer had offered got revised. Now they were offering full restitution, all $340,000, plus an additional $50,000 in damages, to be paid immediately from Marcus's personal assets. In exchange, I would not oppose the plea deal his lawyer was negotiating with the feds. I accepted. I didn't ask for the money to come all at once. I didn't ask for anything beyond what was owed. On March 15, 2023, the first deposit hit my account, $390,000. It felt obscene. It felt like blood money. It felt like the price of 4 years of trust. David wanted to celebrate. He wanted to take me out to dinner, to open a bottle of champagne, to mark the moment as a victory. But I couldn't. Instead, I transferred the money into a new account with a new bank, one that Marcus had never had access to, and I tried not to think about what it represented. Marcus Chen pleaded guilty to federal wire fraud charges on April 10, 2023. He was sentenced to 4 years in a federal prison in Washington state. His lawyer released a statement saying Marcus accepted responsibility for his actions and hoped his family could move forward. I never saw him again after that deposition, but I read the court documents. I learned that Victoria had known about at least some of the transfers. She'd encouraged him to take the money, thinking he was planning to surprise her with a proposal funded by company Success. I learned that Trevor, Marcus's cousin, had been a willing participant and received his own charges. I learned that Marcus had opened a second bank account in Victoria's name and had been funneling money to it for months. The company fell apart, of course, without Marcus's business development, and with me too traumatized to want anything to do with it. There was no one to keep it running. We sold the client list to a larger cybersecurity firm for a fraction of what it should have been worth, but at least it meant the clients were taken care of. $140,000 of the settlement money went to paying back the clients' deposits and honoring the contracts we couldn't fulfill. By June 2023, I was left with $250,000, a destroyed business, a traumatic memory that would probably never fully fade, and a husband who'd stood by me through all of it. I went back to work as a software engineer for a Seattle company, remote from Alaska. It was the same type of work I'd done before I met Marcus, fixing bugs, attending meetings, watching my time get spent on things that didn't matter to me. But now, I didn't hate it.